What I'm about to show to you in this video is something that applies to people who paint or would draw pictures. And my goal is to show you, or at least highlight the importance of making sure that you're not misunderstood, misinterpreted, or you convey the wrong messages in what you say, what you don't say, on how it is said. Now, in this particular video, this is specific for those who are preparing for their interviews for the Speedbird Pilot Academy. Now, whether you're FTE or you're Skyborn, this information would help. Now, let me show you this picture that you see on your screen. You can see the questionnaire. It reads, how many animals do you see in the image? Now, I'm not going to answer that. I want you to leave your thought in the comments section. The reason is because there are a couple of animals in the picture. I'm not going to say it, but just look at the image again. You can go back if you need to go back and just answer. Let me know, 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe in that picture. And let me know in the comment section. Now, I'm going to respond after maybe 24 hours to the correct answer. And I'm going to pin into the top of the comment section. I think this is a fun game to play anyway. Now, why did I bring that up? The reason why I brought that up is to, again, highlight the importance of conveying the correct things during your interview. Before we get into it, if you're new here, welcome. If you're a returning subscriber, thanks for clicking on this video. Know that your time is valuable and mine is as well. And I want to make sure I deliver on the information that I believe you're looking for. And that is how you can prepare for your upcoming interview, and hopefully the information you get from this would help you and make you a better candidate when you show up to that interview. One of the things that I want you to see is this beautiful airplane. Although you can't really see that airplane, right? The beauty is covered. Okay, we don't want that on your interview, on the day of your interview. We want to make sure that you show the beauty of what you have. And what I mean by that is that you want to make sure that whatever you're saying is clearly communicated and clearly understood, kind of just addressing what I shared earlier about the illusion. Now, the first thing that I want to ask you is, why do you think this section of the selection process is important? Why? I'm sure I would get a lot of responses like, to make sure you're right fit, to make sure you have the right skills, to make sure you have the right knowledge and understanding of the program, to make sure that you are qualified for the program. And all those points are correct. And to be honest, there isn't any specific answer that stands out. But there's always an objective for every interview. And understanding the objective of the interview goes a long way. Now, one of the things that I always tell you is they always send you an email. They always let you know what to expect, how to prepare, and they want to get to know you. Spend some time reading that email. Look for keywords that stand out to you. Understand those keywords and know that sometimes, and majority of the time, whatever you'll be asked is often related to what you've been asked to prepare for. But that is not all, because interviews are there to also include surprises. And I want to make sure that, again, we cover all the bases. We cover all the important facts that can help you. So let's talk about expectations. What do you think, or what do you expect from this interview? I'm sure a lot of you would say things like, well, my expectations are to maybe meet the requirements and exceed them. Now, do you do that? When you show up, that means that you're able to answer the questions confidently, clearly, and you are able to, highlight the skills that you possess and your strengths, of course. The other expectation might be that, you are meeting somebody who is professional, or somebody who's going to interview you is professional enough to ask the questions in a way that you can understand. And that expectations goes hand in hand with what is expected by the interviewer. The interviewer expects you to be ready, expects you to be well prepared, expects you to show that you have the motivation, the drive, the abilities, you have the understanding of the role, you have the understanding of the program that you've applied to. Now, all these expectations are things that you have to understand what is expected of you, and you also definitely have some expectations about your own performance. So a few things that I want to share with you here at this point is that when it comes to expectations, remember, always go with the mindset of this interview, in my mind, this is how I approach it. is likely going to be difficult. So let me prepare as much as I can, putting in all my effort, making sure that I cross my I's or dot my I's, cross my T's, in order to give myself the best chance of succeeding and exceeding the expectation of the interview or the interviewer. Realize that every interviewer that comes to this, that interviews anyone, has prepared. They've looked at your CV, they've looked at your maybe your scores, if they've been given that ability. They've gotten something about your profile, right? And they have a general idea of who you are, and now they want to hear it from you. So whatever you're saying, in as much as your CV has probably shared that information with them, they want to hear it from you. And hearing it from you is often different from what you read. So in your preparation, you have to also prepare with the right words to convey emotions. You have to prepare the right attitude through what you say, because what you say and don't say will be interpreted. And remember what I showed you about the picture, about the illusion? You don't want to be misunderstood or misinterpreted, or you don't want them to see the wrong picture of you. So what are the things I would expect you to do? My own expectations for you as somebody who is preparing is to step up on how you prepare, which means practice on a regular basis. There are lots of questions online, interview questions, things like, tell me about yourself. It might not come in that order or in that way or in that phrase, but your ability to make sure that you have a lot to say about yourself goes a long way. The next thing is, why do you want to, or why did you apply to the program? Or why have you applied to the program? Is another aspect of this type of questions that you should definitely expect and be ready to answer. Now, I will come back to some of this as we continue, but there are some questions that type of questions you can always expect. The purpose of the question are often to test your motivation, and that would often come through your understanding of the role, the type of things you've done in the past, how you've handled challenges in aviation or setbacks, while going through maybe training, if you're already in training, or if you're somebody who has maybe attempted to train in the past and maybe you have, you've been unable to get it all done. Those things will be in the motivation category. So what have you done? How have you done it? When have you done it? How often have you tried to maybe become a pilot and maybe you haven't succeeded because of maybe money, whatever the situation is, right? Those things are under the motivation aspect. Also, one thing to also remember is that what you know about the role, what you know about the airline, what you know about the school, all those things are in line with how motivated you are. The more you understand about all those areas that I've mentioned, the better you are. And of course, the introductory aspect would be questions like, tell me about yourself. Who are you? What made you apply to the program? What have you achieved while preparing for this, or how have you prepared for this program, right? Questions like that are somewhat in this line of motivation / introductory questions. Now, next one will be the competency-based questions. Now, these are questions that you see on a regular basis, and the best way you can go about them is find ways to answer various competency-based questions. And that leads me to understanding pilot competencies guide that I have. Some of you have reached out to ask, how can you read more about competencies, or how can you describe competencies? I've broken it down to the best of my abilities anyway. And the purpose of that is to share with you how some of those competencies apply in aviation and how you can understand those competencies. That is the best way I can describe it. And the goal here is those competencies, how have you demonstrated them in the past? How have you used this knowledge, the tools in your previous life? When I say previous life, maybe previous job, maybe current job. If you are somebody who is struggling, know that there's a ton of resources that are available online that can help you in this. One thing I want to let you know is that what you say or don't say goes a long way. That means the way you say it. Now, but leaving out information that are critical can be consequential, all right? And we don't want that. We don't want to leave out good information that would hurt us. Okay, so keep that in mind. So examples of competency-based questions would be questions like, tell me about a time you failed to achieve something. Tell me about a time you had to walk through a difficult problem. How did you go about it? Was there ever a time you struggled to work with other people within a group, and what did you learn from it? All of those type of questions require that you have a structured approach to respond, and that is where the STAR concept comes in. If you haven't seen the STAR model, look online, just STAR during interviews, and you see things like situation, task, action, results. Okay, the goal of that is to make sure that you are able to convey the information in a way that it tells a story, but it is a story that you went through. So your actions, the things you did, the steps you took, the results that you got from it, and the things you learned are things that you want to make sure are mentioned when you are talking about this type of competency-based questions. And remember, why are they asking you? They want to make sure that you understand the competencies and how to apply them. Critical to your success as you proceed through this. The next thing, all right, will be scenario-based questions. Now, generally speaking, this may not come up at this stage, but I always try to prepare everyone that, hey, you just never know what type of scenarios you may get. They may ask you the questions in that order or in that line of question, which would be questions like, what would you do if you were to work with somebody who is not friendly? How would you handle that person? Questions like that are generally scenarios, and you're required to try to address it within that situation. It is important, again, just like the competency-based question, that you emphasize a lot on your actions and how you would resolve that situation. Now, always think about maybe the questions that you have. Sometimes you generally have questions, you generally want to give feedback. It's always good to think about those as well as you prepare. Now, some of the techniques as an interviewer, okay, somebody who has maybe interviewed people in the past, and also if you were to switch roles, ask yourself, what are the techniques some of the interviewers use? And I think this is an important information, because when you have an understanding of this, I think it helps you prepare better. I think it gives you some clarity on how to go about the reasons why these questions are asked and how to address them. Now, when you are preparing, when you see a question, always think about why this interviewer might have asked this question, and then try to approach it from that angle as well to make sure that you answer the interviewer. Whatever you do in an interview, if you ask the question, make sure that you answer the question. It's very crucial. So some things to keep in mind. Know the objectives of the role. Okay, when you understand the objectives of the role that you have applied for or that you're interviewing for, in this case, the Speedbird Pilot Academy, what is the goal of the program, and how are you a good candidate for that role, goes a long way. It would help you a lot, especially the roles of a pilot, and of course the roles of a trainee, because you would be in a training environment for some time and they want to understand that you can succeed. So if you understand the roles that are expected of you, then it would help you in answering questions more confidently, because you truly understand the process, the steps, the program. Next thing, know the competencies, like I mentioned. What are the competencies are needed to be a successful candidate in that role? Remember, as an interviewer, that's what I have up here, as an interviewer, they know these things. They know the competencies they're testing for. So for you, they think about this as a form of reverse psychology or reverse approach to solving the problem. If we understand what the interviewer is looking for, then it's easier as a candidate to prepare for what the person is looking for. Think about it that way. Let me give you a good analogy here. If you know what somebody wants and you have it, it is easier for you to give it. Make sense? Same thing. Because we know what the interviewers are looking for, which, like I said, they would have communicated this to you via emails, through their websites, through their maybe their hiring page, all those things, once you know those things and you know them well, if you truly have it, it is easier for you to give those things. So when you know the competencies, you know how they apply, you know you've applied them to the, and now you can apply them to the role, then it would help you. Now, of course, competency questions, like I said earlier. Now, let's talk about how the interviewer sees this. They have a standardized form of questions that they will ask everybody. It's standard to make sure that it's a fair type of assessment. So all the questions are generally written out or noted down. And the goal is to make sure that every interviewer, if they give that type of structured questions to any interviewer, they can assess a candidate and generally arrive at the same conclusion about the candidate. That's what makes it fair. And remember what I said earlier, if you know what they're looking for, then it's easier for you to prepare and give them what they want. And that is why, remember, competencies is the important foundation for your success as a pilot, which means that if you understand the various type of competency questions as an interviewee or somebody interviewing that is being a candidate in this case, then it's easier for you to focus on demonstrating those competencies through the answers, through your actions, and through the results you've gotten. So back to this. Competency questions will be asked, and these are standardized questions that are testing for those competencies that we mentioned earlier. Now, from those competency questions, there are often follow-up questions that are designed to either reassure the interviewer, in this case, the person interviewing you, okay, the recruiter, designed to make sure that you truly understand what you've answered in that particular competency question. So follow-up questions would be, why did you do that? Or why didn't you do this? Or what are the steps you considered? Or what were your reasons why you chose to do X, Y, and Z? Those are just generally some follow-ups. Now, some of the follow-up questions can be designed to also throw you off intentionally. Questions that sometimes, once they sense a level of indecision, or if you're undecisive in the actions you've taken or you will take, sometimes they throw up these follow-up questions to see how confident you are in what you say you will do. And it is sometimes important, especially, and I think I can show my face here, especially when these are procedural steps or steps that will require you make multiple decisions or that has multiple options. This type of questions, if are posed at you during an interview, sometimes elicit your undecisiveness or indecisiveness. Something. I hope I said that right. If you're undecisive, then those things show up, right, through those questions they ask you. And they would intentionally ask some follow-up questions to see how confident you are in what you've said. And it's okay to get those follow-up questions, but it is not okay to begin to waffle and then maybe I'll change this, and then you change your mind, and guess what? Before you know it, you're in a rabbit hole. So that's something you don't want. Now, I know that for this stage, this may not really be the situation, but something to keep in mind. Let's move on. The next thing is right here. I think I was here. Okay, follow-up questions. And then the last thing to think about is the psychology of interviewing. Now, remember that although these people are not psychologists, okay, and but they are human, right? And because they're human, that means that they would have things like bias. They might have some cognitive aspects of interviewing where they want to see your thought process. And the more specific you are in detailing your steps or actions that you took or that you will take in a specific situation, the better you will perform, the better you are graded, because cognitively they can see that you have the critical thinking skills which is required for you to succeed as a pilot. That is something that you need to keep in mind. Now, we can talk about bias. We can talk about, things like your body language. We can talk about things like distractions. Those things play a role in all of this process, but I think to a limited aspect, right? Because this is generally in a controlled environment, I would focus on the bias and cognitive aspect of things, So pay attention. Make sure that you are able to connect with people, because when it comes to interviewing, it's a bit of people skills as well. Your ability to connect with strangers and strike it off in a way that is positive. So keep those in mind. Now, the next thing that I want you to then start preparing for, which I'm going to use to conclude this video, would be the prep work. How are you preparing? How are you preparing? One of the things that I mentioned for the interviewer part is to know the objectives and the role. And I think that is something that I'm repeating here. But competencies and various competency questions will go a long way. So study those competency questions. The goal will be to detail out your star, but make sure that whatever you're doing, you're able to detail the things you are doing, the steps you took, the actions you took. Be specific and detailed about that. Very important. Now, the other thing that you want to keep in mind would be to practice. The more time you spend practicing and detailing out these things, and seeing ways to either convey that information in a more maybe positive way, or maybe in a more coherent way, will help you as well. Remember, you have a very limited amount of time during your interview, and your goal is to highlight the best part of your traits and skills and personality and all that within a short time. Talking about personality, personalize and show your personality in the process. What do I mean by personalize? What I mean by that is there are times when questions will be asked, and if you are unable to connect with that question or connect to that question, how you have applied those things in your life, in your day-to-day work, or in the past, then there's no connection there. So it's like somebody asking you, why do you want to be a pilot? And you're like, well, I know that pilots fly airplanes and it's just a nice type of career. It's a nice career to get into. Well, there's no personal touch to that at all, right? And that is not a good answer. So a personal touch comes into what has inspired my desire to pursue the dream of becoming a pilot. The challenges I experienced, the things I've achieved in the process, where I am in the process, and what I look forward to doing in the process, right? Or in the career. All those are things that makes it personal to me. So the same thing goes with your questions you're asked. They want to understand you, not definition of the word that you're trying to describe. They know about the program already. They want to know what you know about the program and how you will go through the program. They want to know the challenges that you know about the program and how you will deal with the program or the challenges that come with the program. So things like that goes a long way. Now, of course, one last part, very important, have structure, because structure leads to confidence. And in the process, make sure you're specific about how you will achieve, or how you're planning to achieve your goals. Now, one of the key things that I want to then wrap up with is this. Remember that at the end of the day, you are being tested for an opportunity. So you have two schools, the FTE Jerez, and then you have the Skyborn as well. In these two schools, you've chosen them for a specific reason, and you want to make sure that your reasons clearly communicated. Okay. So for example, maybe you've chosen FTE for its environment, for the experience, for the equipment they offer, or the expertise they get, whatever that may be. These are both good schools. Again, with Skyborn, you want to know why you've chosen the school. They have some things that you've highlighted on your website. They have the selection process. They have some materials that you can read. All those things are things that you would have to do by yourself. And I want you to spend time. I encourage you actually to spend time learning about those things and finding things out that you are interested in about the school, that piqued your interest on why you've chosen the school. I do have some materials down below. I do offer the one-on-ones if you're interested in those. And I do have the pilot assessment study course package as well, that you can use my discount code to apply for. These are all things that can help you to succeed, and the goal is to see you succeed and achieve your dreams. And I'll see you in a future video.